Hey everyone, and welcome back to Tech Strong Unplugged. This is episode 5 of our series, and I'm your host, Natan Solomon, joined by my amazing co-host, Cassandra Chin. On Tech Strong Unplugged, we dive into all things tech and get people up to speed with everything happening across the industry. Recently, Cassandra went to the Great International Developer Summit, also known as GIDS. Cassandra, why don't you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, so I talked to Umadevi Santhanam, and she brings us a really unique perspective because she grew up in India and she really started her developer career there, and she's still at India being a developer. It's a really unique experience.
Awesome. So, as mentioned, Cassandra went to GIDS 2024 and sat down with a few industry experts and engaged in some great discussions. Today, we'll be taking you to the conference where Cassandra's talked with Umadevi Santhanam, who is a distinguished technologist at OpenText. In this interview, Cassandra and Umadevi talk about building resilient systems in the tech industry. Cassandra, what were your thoughts in the interview and what should we know heading into it?
It's definitely a very exciting interview, and she gives her own perspective, but very unique upbringing. It's a really fun story to hear, and she's a fun person.
Awesome. Well, without further ado, let's head over to GIDS at Bangalore, India.
Okay, so welcome back to TechStrong Unplugged. I'm your host, Cassandra Chin, and today we have Uma, who's an extinguished developer technologist. So can you tell me a little bit about how you got to be where you are today?
Maybe started my career maybe 2 decades back, and I've been pretty much passionate about technology. I've not been maybe when I started my career, there were not too many girls who were doing technology. They were more moving to the being manager, senior manager, director. They were going those paths. There were very few women who were, aspiring for a technology career path. And I think, as I started my career, I was pretty clear I needed to stay on this line. And so maybe one of the few distinguished technologists within my company, and then, very few women today there. But I think it's interesting journey so far that it's been.
How did you decide to keep sticking with computers?
How did I stick?
Because there's not a lot of women doing it, so you're really resilient.
Okay, so my fancy for computers was maybe when I was in school, college. I used to be very interested in computers, and we had a school room. I grew up in Bangalore, so we had a school computer room. Those days when computers had just started in India at least, and the only way that you could spend a little more longer time in the room is if you clean the room. So I used to spend my morning prayer time, instead of attending the prayers, clean the computer room quickly so that I can, play with the computers a little more. So I had a big fancy for computers for a long time in my life.
When you played on the computers, is there anything specific you do on them?
Early days, it used to be all those mindless games. But slowly, programming started interesting me. And then I did my bachelor's, then my master's. Then I think what's been interesting to me is more of networking. I've been a very, networking kind of person, and now I'm into cybersecurity. So the whole space of, how do you catch the attackers? How do you find what is happening in the network? What is happening around you? It feels like a police. It feels like, somebody you are, trying to hunt somebody who's doing something wrong. So it's kind of interesting.
And when you were getting an education in computer science,
yes,
do you feel like you were able to find people, make friends?
Okay, that was okay because I was born and brought up in Bangalore, so it was not very difficult, but the class was very skewed. Obviously, the class has been very skewed. We used to have, I think, maybe 5-6 girls in a class of 30 odd guys. But I think the whole numbers are changing. Like my daughter is now doing her UG in computers. I see a class which is it's almost at a half, which is good. So over the many 25 years, I think the world has changed dramatically.
I think it's really nice she's following in your footsteps.
I don't know if she's following at my footsteps because she likes the way that I like it. She likes it for different reasons. She likes it for design. She likes it for other things. See, the thing about computer science is that you have a whole range of things that, it can excite you about.
It's interesting because you said that like half the class has girls now,
Yes.
but come from the U.S., like California, and that's not really the case where we live.
Oh, is it? Interesting.
No.
The Bangalore, it's like 40% of the class is now girls.
Okay.
It's pretty good. I mean, people are learning that it's exciting, it's interesting, you can do stuff. It's getting there slowly.
So what do you do more now for your job?
What do I do more as a job? I work as an architect over a global team. At OpenText, I have a global team which is around 200, 250 engineers roughly across the globe. So my day starts with India, but then goes on to Europe, goes on to Turkey, goes on all the way to Santa Clara, and then, and then California is my last team sitting there. So my typical day goes around design discussions, architecture meetings, trying to meet deadlines, trying to meet releases, figure out what are the problems, customer issues, name it. It just goes on to anything.
Okay. So like you talk to different time zones as the day goes throughout?
Yes, like the day goes on with the time zones, and then you are like, that's a slightly difficult part of working off from Bangalore and then being an architect over global teams. You kind of get stuck into, working through the time. But it's still fun. I mean, no regrets with it.
Do you think going to this conference is the more fun part of your job?
I think I get to meet people is what is interesting. And when I saw your mail, I was like, it's nice to meet somebody else who's not technology, so it's good. Let's just go meet them. So I like to meet people, hear perspectives. It gives a whole different way to your thinking. So I love to meet people. I'm a kind of an introvert, but once I get into my space, I'm good. So
yeah, I'm also kind of an introvert.
Okay.
But once we get talking,
then it's good. Till then it gets a little hard. So I'm hoping to find somebody that I can talk with.
So I think we're having a nice conversation.
Yeah, good.
When you meet people, do you feel like you learn anything? Or maybe make friends or...
It's usually make friends first, then learn. It's usually make friends first because, for you to learn something, you just have to get along with them at the first go. And then it gets interesting. I think make friends first. Learn happens. Learn happens in the conversation according to me. So, you keep traveling around to do this, or how do you do it?
So I actually go to lots of conferences.
Okay.
And recording these interviews is a new thing for me.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you keep recording these interviews and must be exciting job.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Fun. Okay, anything else you want to know from me?
Maybe do you want to talk about your hometown?
Oh, my hometown. Okay, so I grew up in Bangalore, interestingly. Not many people were born and brought up in Bangalore, if you see the current generation. I was born in Bangalore when Bangalore was that laid-back city. You had maybe 100 cars in whole of Bangalore. And then there was really nice roads and all the trees and the really nice Bangalore it was. And when I grew up, when I was saying, when I wanted to become a computer scientist, and then there was no computer scientist as such, my only ambition was to buy a car. I was like, okay, I need to be one of the persons who buys the car there. Because I knew if you're a computer engineer, you get a lot of money. So that was maybe it was not computer first, it was the car earlier, I think. I think I was very fascinated by a particular brand of car which no more is made. I think it was Ambassador, and I think it's still made. I don't remember exactly. But so grew up... Dad was an engineer, so grew up, seeing him in the telecom department, seeing him doing a lot of stuff. Siblings went around different things, but primarily I was the kid at home who was the nerd who used to try and do things. And then eventually, graduation, post-graduation went through.
Do you feel like your parents and family supported you going into computers?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It was, I think, my dad, if you see at the generation that I was, girls were still not very pushed to studies or very accommodated or very supported, and I think my parents played a huge part in pushing me forward into a domain like this, and I think thanks to them.
I think that's really great. You're really headstrong with technology.
Yes. It's fun because I think over the years it's been interesting because now I still feel I'm in a lot of places. I'm the only woman in the room. I'm still there in a lot of places, but I still see one or two places where there are more women than me. But yeah, you still are the only person in the room. It's still. I think it'll take a long time for
Does
that
that
to
feeling ever bother you? Being the only woman in the room?
go. Nah.
No?
It used to. Once upon a time, I used to be very worked up over the fact that, okay, what next? I mean, simple things like, oh, where is the restroom? I had to ask the guys where the ladies' restroom was. So it was little interesting. But now over time, I'm like, okay, I don't care much. What else?
Um, do you want to mention your talk and a little bit what it's about?
Okay. Yeah, my talk is about how to become a great architect. I'm kind of, talking on the soft skills really to say, your ability to, tell a story to your team, to be able to take the risks, to be able to, wear your passion, run through the risks, run through your challenges, try and, motivate your team. How do you, innovate into really difficult situations? How do you, kind of work through almost a sinking project? How do you go through a really, most projects don't really, meet deadlines. So like, how do you manage through that? How do you keep your stakeholders in confidence? So you should attend my talk.
You mentioned telling a story.
Yes.
How does that help?
Oh, this is one of my favorite topics. I think as architects, most people don't want to tell the story. They want to be able to just say, okay, you do this. It's like, okay, you go and take Uma's interview. You don't tell the person, why are you doing Uma's interview? Why is it that, why is it that you're sitting here? Why is it that it's Uma? Why is it that you have to ask certain questions? If you don't do that, the person executing the job is just doing that. So like I call it, building the cathedral. You need to tell the people that, okay, you're building the cathedral, you're building this. You're not building a wall, you're not building a square wall that, you're responsible for. You're building a wall which is responsible to eventually build the cathedral. So it's like, so the cathedral is the vision, and I think the vision is important for everybody to keep telling. And I say, communicate at every opportunity. Tell everybody, here's the cathedral. Don't just, say, oh, you're building the square feet wall. If you didn't finish it, you're like, like the project is doomed. Versus, telling them, yes, here's what it is. So everybody understand what needs to be done.
So instead of just telling someone to do something by a deadline,
Yeah.
we should tell them why they're doing it.
Yes, why they're doing it and how it fits the big picture. They feel more engaged. They also may, give you inputs which may sometimes surprise you. So I think, telling the whole story, that too, as you grow to larger teams, you start disseminating parts of information to different teams, saying, okay, you do this, you do this, you do this. But which is good, but you also need to keep the big picture always being told to everybody, saying, okay, here's why you're doing this. Here's why, like, this wall is important, this wall carries this for me, so please do it correctly. So I think that's important.
How do you break up the flow of like, you do this, you do this? Because isn't it easy to just get into that habit? Like, do you need to hold a meeting to like have a discussion where you collaborate?
Oh, we usually work in sprints and squad teams. So like the sprint teams are working pretty well. The problem is that's all defined work. There is a lot of undefined work now, which happens, people have surprises on the way. People have things that are happening. So then you're a whole lot of, there's a whole joke about me saying, Uma will say, hi, quick call, which means, okay, something is happening. Uma needs to talk to you. So I keep saying quick call every now and then to a lot of people. And I have a lot of scheduled meetings that I get in. I get into the sprint stand-up meetings just to see what is happening. Sometimes things don't bubble up to you, so you are like listening into something else that's happening that you don't really need to listen in, so that okay, here's what should be happening.
So you think it's important to listen into other meetings?
Yes,
even
I
if
do.
they're not relevant to you?
Yes, like I constantly do that. Those are not really, like each of the team meetings, I don't need to get in, but I usually get in. Into one of the meetings, I will dial in and then, figure out what's happening there. So it's interesting because you see what are people talking, what's their perspectives. Maybe you will catch something which you should catch. So it's good.
I think that's really good advice because it's easy to get caught up into only doing what you have to with your own team.
Yeah, right. So like you get into other teams, do things that you don't do usually, makes it interesting.
Do you ever find yourself talking in those meetings?
Oh yeah, sometimes I step in. There are a lot of people who see me in teams and they're like, oh, Uma's joined. I'm like, no, Uma's not joined. Please don't be so careful over the fact that I've joined. Over time, sometimes you join and then you step in and then, you're talking, but usually I don't step in because then it doesn't let them, freely converse. Over times, I just listen, come out, and then, find the lead or the architect or the manager and say, okay, this shouldn't have happened there. But with more comfortable teams which are okay with me stepping in, I do step in and say, okay, by the way, we should talk through this.
Okay, so it really depends on the situation.
Yeah,
and
it depends on. I don't have a particular way to it, and so it works. Either way works usually.
Are there any other soft skills you want to talk about?
Oh, okay. So one of the soft skills that I think makes a great architect is your ability to take risks. Your ability to take very calculated risks. If you see as an engineer, when you start programming, what you do is somebody is telling you, okay, write this code, you do this. Somebody tells you, okay, test this, you test it. So that's typically what you do. Slowly as you go up a little, somebody says, okay, design this, you design it. Somebody tells, okay, do this, you keep doing it. But as you move higher, you realize there is a lot of ambiguity around you and there is no right or wrong as an answer. There's nothing like this is the most perfect thing to do, this is not. And you need to be able to, make your own judgmental calls. You can read everything, talk to everybody, but at the end of it, it's your judgmental risks. And I think if you don't have an appetite for risk, invariably you will play it very careful. You will play it very careful and, you don't know. So I think what I usually do is take those risks, tell people here the risk and say, okay, I think our schedule needs a plus 20% just in case one of these risks materializes. Maybe 10 of these may not materialize, maybe 2 of these may materialize, which I don't know today. But because of that, I'm not going to spend the time, getting it to a clear place for all the 10 risks and then start the project. I'll start the project, let you all run, but at some point something is going to happen and I'm going to keep a 20% for it. So I think your appetite to take risks is a big thing according to me for you to succeed and move forward.
So always try something new rather than just keep doing them.
Yeah, just keep doing what you've been doing all along. Anything. Or
it's really easy to get caught up in doing what you've always been doing.
And it's easier. In fact, it's easier to keep doing what you've been always doing because you know how to do it. The minute you are running away from your comfort zone, it gets scary for you also because a lot of people are depending on you. And at the same time, I mean, it's a very easy thing to say, okay, I'll just do the same thing because it's comfortable for me. I'm not doing the risk. People are depending on me. It's all safe. But the minute you're just a little off that comfort zone, there's a very different excitement that starts building around you. Where okay, you're doing something which is not what you've done, but at the same time, you're kind of running it along with others, so makes it more fun.
I think we talked about a lot of important soft skills today.
Yes.
So thank you. It's been a really great time with you.
Thank you, Cassandra. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.